Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod, an accessible and easy way to get into or help understand the goings-on of the property market. Join Aaron, John and Pat as they discuss all things real estate, most likely get sidetracked, and then try and rein it all back in as they present The Property Pod.
Welcome. I'm going to take the lead today because Aaron was looking a little stunned there.
It's really hard to come up with intros there. That was pretty tricky. And I'm glad you took the reins.
Well, I was inspired from John Oliver. He does the same intro every single show, so there you go.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
And what's his? Is that his welcome? Did you steal John Oliver's?
It's pretty much. He'll probably feature me in a couple of weeks, no doubt, when he finds out.
It makes it simple. I mean, I went out and bought the exact same white shirt, like 3 or 4 copies of it, because I open up the wardrobe, I'm wearing the exact same shirt. Nice and simple. It's like the Steve Jobs way of working, only I'm not Steve Jobs.
I thought you were going Zuckerberg, but yep, Steve Jobs did the same thing, so we're all good.
There was a thing just the other week about Steve Jobs may be alive. Did you see that on Reddit?
Oh, really?
There's some guy in Egypt that looks exactly like Steve Jobs. The only thing he didn't have was the skivvy, but he was even sitting there holding his finger under his face the exact same way as Steve Jobs would.
Speaking of lookalikes, that podcast the other day that our friend Adam is producing, Aaron.
Not lookalikes, voice alike.
Oh, my God.
That's right.
So what's the show called, Aaron?
It's the Pacer-Roos. So
Shout out to our friend that started his own podcast. But
do you think we inspired him?
Hope so. But when he's listening, and to anyone else that's listening, go look it up, listen to episode 1 and just listen to the intro. And if you do not think it's Aaron, then you have not been listening to any of our shows.
Even I thought it was me. I was like, did I black out? Did I full on just black out, have a canipsis and start talking about a basketball team I know nothing about?
John, I thought he was cheating on us. I thought he had left us. He was two-timing us.
He's diversifying.
Well, speaking of
he
sport,
swiped left on the new show. Left or I don't know.
You're married, mate. You don't have to know about swiping left and right. But speaking of sports teams, today we have a return guest.
We do indeed.
And the way we roped him into talking to us again was his beloved Brisbane Lions are looking really good for the premiership in the AFL this year.
So we're going to get a bit off topic today and not really talk much about real estate and more about football. So this is going to be interesting.
So we've got Simon Pressley again from Propertyology coming in. We're waiting for a phone call from him. But, the funny bit was we were sitting here and, Pat said, our mate Simon's got a new article out. Like, have a look at this. It looks pretty good. And I said, mate, email him and see if he wants to get on the show. But don't ask about the subject. Just tell him we want to talk Lions.
Yeah.
Even if we don't talk Lions. He thinks we're talking Lions, but we don't have to talk Lions.
Hook, line and
Because I saw the email because it was like 90% Lions, and then at the end you said, "Oh yeah." How'd you do it?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, we saw this new article. We might talk about that.
So we'll see how we go. So you hit the dial button, we'll cut to the ad.
And then we should have him on the line. Let's
jump into
do
Simon.
this.
Cool. Oh yeah, go Bombers.
As a family-run business, First National Real Estate McGregor understands that the property market can be stressful. However, with a strong team in both sales and rentals, we are here to guide you through the property maze. Find out more today at mcgregorfm.com.
All right, guys, we are back. We've got our second returnee guest. This one is not your mum this time, John, which was lovely having your mum on twice.
That's true. That's true.
We've got another friend of the podcast, Simon Pressley, with us today from Propertyology. Hey, Simon, how are you?
Welcome back.
Really well, gents. Great to be back.
I'm surprised you come back, Simon, after the first time because we talk a lot of rubbish. So I'm excited you've given us another half an hour of your time.
I mean, what's not to be excited about? Tassie is God's country, in my opinion. I love property. You guys like footy. I mean, what's not to love about that? Really, we got the trifecta.
Well, we were just saying in the intro, the way that we snaked you onto the podcast again was talking all things Brisbane Lions, and then maybe just a ... Oh, I guess we could talk about your new article as well.
You're very clever guys. You really know how to pull my heartstrings. Anything to do with the Brisbane Lions, you get my attention.
Anything for our audience, Simon. Anything for our audience.
So let's jump straight into it. What are your thoughts moving into September and the Lions?
Oh, yeah, it's most exciting month of the year for me. Whilst publicly I'm probably known as being really passionate about property markets, and that's certainly true, but I'm more passionate about AFL and particularly the Brisbane Lions. To think sort of this time 12 months ago, we were languishing bottom of the ladder and have been stuck there for a long period of time, and then we finished equal top at the end of the home and away. What a great year, and I think we're just as good a chance as anyone to win the flag, to tell you the truth. I don't have that expectation. Certainly, now that you're there, you've got to make the most of it.
Well, what I like about the Brisbane Lions this year is that they tend to have beaten most of the top 8 teams. They're one of the few teams that seem to have done pretty well playing against the top sides.
Oh, the AFL will have to be salivating, wouldn't they? I mean, it's just such an even competition. I think every team's had a period of sort of 4 to 6 weeks where they've looked like the favourites, and then that's sort of been followed by a run of mediocre form, but everyone's in the hunt. I think grand final will probably come down to percentages, whether it's played at a team's home ground or an injury to a key player in a key final or something like that. But
all right, well, we should probably talk about the real deal and jump straight into some property stuff. So, boys, I'm going to throw over to you because I'm just a photographer.
Yeah. Well, I noticed, Simon, you had a new blog out last month, August, that came out, according to my notes. Talks about city deals and obviously your 7 top city deals around the country.
Yeah, and look, for the listeners who are not quite sure what a city deal is, it's a great example of political leadership, and it's something that's I don't like politics personally, but I don't think we've seen a lot of political leadership from any party for a long period of time. But why this is a great initiative, it's federal government, state government and local government all combining and agreeing on something for a strategically chosen location. So when it comes to infrastructure, it's really common across all states and territories in Australia, where you might have a federal government that wants to do one thing, but the local state government, because they don't back the same team, they won't approve it. They've got a different idea, and consequently nothing usually happens. But the city deal is a great initiative. It's I guess it's been a policy that's been around for about 3 years, but the money is now just being started to be spent. So 7 cities have so far been awarded a city deal: Townsville, Western Sydney, Launceston in Tasmania, Darwin, Hobart. Hobart just a few months ago was awarded a city deal, Adelaide and Geelong. So it's great for economic development, infrastructure, investment on steroids. Stuff tends to help local confidence in property markets as well.
So is the city deal a hard thing to win, I guess? Obviously there's a lot of cities right around Australia. Is it a hard thing to get your city chosen over another one?
Yeah, it is, and I'm sure that most, if not every city in Australia has been jockeying for a slice of the pie and putting forward all sorts of submissions, and there will no doubt be some more city deals awarded in years to come. But really, at the end of the day, I think the federal government, because they put the most money up, will probably have the biggest say as to what order they get released in, and state governments as well. But yeah, they're hard to get, but it's sort of generational changing stuff, really. Again, as I said, how often do you get a federal government, a state government and city council all saying, we're going to put politics aside and we're just going to do what the city needs? Fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, we've got a particular affinity for Tasmania.
And 2 of the cities that are mentioned in your article.
Which is pretty cool, really. So what are the...
Absolutely it is, yeah.
I mean, we've got it now, Simon, but I'll get you to lead if that's okay. What are the sort of the key things that are coming out in Tasmania that they're investing in?
So in Launceston, really it's some of this money is already filtering through the Launceston's economy. So there's 3 separate projects form part of what's called the city heart of Launceston. So urban renewal projects. Now, why state, federal and local government chose that, of all things they could spend money on, is they recognise that tourism is going crazy in Tasmania.
Yep.
It's not just mainland Australians that finally appreciate what they're missing out on, but worldwide it's really gained a lot of popularity. And they recognise that if they can keep more people when they travel to Launceston in town, that's going to benefit the economy a lot more. So really clever use of money, and some of those projects have just recently been completed. But the biggest parcel of funds yet to be spent, and that's relocating the university from Newnham in the outer northern suburbs to the CBD, and that's fantastic.
So that's Aaron's old stomping ground, the Launceston Uni?
That's where I studied. I was just north of Newman, so we would ride the bike down the hill and go to the uni, so it'd be much better when it's closer to the city. Yeah,
and look, how it will benefit Launceston is a bigger university, so they can attract more people, internationally and domestic people, a more modern facility. But the main reason for basing, it's very strategic, putting it closer to town. So again, so keep people in the town and spending more money, and that's going to benefit all the businesses, not just the students and teachers at the university. That then leaves a question, what will happen with the existing site where the university is at Newnham? No final decision on that, but it might be military related by the sound of it.
Oh,
Big
yeah, there's all the
defence, hub out
accommodation
there.
and large spaces, the ovals and stuff. So, yeah, it could be a good place to house the military and training, etc.
Well, the other thing is too, I mean, our company's been working with the Defence Housing Authority for nearly 20 years. And, of course, down at the Dowsing Point in Hobart, that runs right along the border of the river. And at the moment, that, for the most part, is almost like a glorified administrative building, namely because it's just because obviously the purpose has changed. And I know they've been offloading a lot of their separate housing properties and put them onto the market for sale just because of obviously it gets to a certain age. But that would make perfect sense, I suppose, if they were able to relocate all their people into one spot.
Yeah, and look, keeping it real estate related, Launceston is arguably the strongest property market in all of Australia at the moment. It's certainly smashing all the 8 capital cities, but even of all the various regional locations across our states and territories, Launceston has been particularly strong for the last 18 months, and we think it still has an extremely healthy outlook.
Well, one of the things you'd mentioned too there, where it talks about, was it the Northern Suburbs Revitalisation Plan, and you obviously relocating that university closer. That's that point you said, the Launceston cultural strategy, which would to be better coordinate the cultural events. And I guess, Hobart's been very fortunate in that we've had the huge boom change as a result of the Mona infrastructure. So is a lot of that, they're trying to obviously reinvigorate that into Launceston in order to be able to create that sense of, that art culture in Launceston as well?
Oh, I think it's definitely a big part of it. It's just great, isn't it, to see, people thinking big picture and not just getting caught up in the moment and what's politically popular or unpopular, and real city building stuff, long lasting stuff that for generations to come, not just jobs in the immediate future, but for generations to come, the city of Launceston is going to thrive as a result of this stuff.
Yeah, I love the word legacy. So in that instance, you can see that no politicians would be sitting there saying, "Oh, I did this. This is really something that's just going to be an investment for everyone," rather than going, "This was my idea. This was my idea," and trying to take sort of an ego ownership of it. At least in this case, it's purely for nothing else but Tasmania's growth in for decades.
Yeah, collaborative decision making, which is that. Now that's leadership, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, so how does that? So what are we looking at in Hobart? I know there was a couple of big infrastructures you've mentioned.
Something to do with the airport or something?
Oh, there's a few bits. Yeah. Do you want to lead off in Hobart, Simon?
So Hobart City Deal was only a few months ago that was announced, but it's been spoken about. There's a lot of planning that goes into these things. By the time the decisions been published, there's often 2 years of discussion around the table. But look, Hobart, its airport, as you know, it's a good airport, but it's a domestic airport. You can't get a direct flight from any other part of the world directly into Hobart. There's enormous demand for that to occur. So some of the money for the Hobart City Deal is addressing not just runway things, but more importantly, security things that are needed to host international flights. The Bridgewater Bridge, a major transport artery to the city of Hobart, some money allocated to replace that. The Macquarie Point, that's arguably one of the most exciting future projects for any city in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to the enormous potential there. But that said, it's also been spoken about for many years and nothing's actually happened. So some money's been allocated to that, science-related, tourism-related, arts and culture. If you're excited about how well Tassie's economy's done, largely influenced by tourism over the last few years. Wait till you see it when Macquarie Point is finished.
It.
So some great money being spent.
And then big numbers too, like 450 million for Macquarie Point, 576 million for the Bridgewater Bridge. It's not small coins they're talking about with these city deals, are they?
No, that's right. And I think by the time Macquarie Point, they still haven't decided exactly what they're going to do with it. But I've read figures up to $1 billion. That's another one. But I've heard $1 billion thrown around. So you're talking Circular Quay, Sydney Harbour type stuff.
Yeah.
Really big scale, major economic hub. Not just jobs created within the facility, but things for the entire community to benefit from.
It would be fairly rare for a piece of land that sort of size to exist so close to a capital city, wouldn't it?
Oh, often, yeah. When a city, first established, 200 plus years ago, it's usually sites like that are first developed, and then obviously expands further out from there. So it's really rare to have something prime location as this that's largely deserted, isn't it? So
that's it. It's what's it made up now of a brewery and some sheds? There's nothing
bunch of
down there.
logs.
Yeah, some logs.
Bring it on.
Well, I know another one too. Yeah. I was looking at a couple of elements where there's the bids going out for over 50% stake in the Hobart Airport, and the numbers throwing around that is that there was, I think in the latest one, the latest group to get involved was the French group, I think VINCI, so Vinci. But then in that instance, you've got
I think they're the biggest airport owner globally that wants to buy a 50% stake in Hobart Airport. So. Yeah, I mean, what's that say about the potential that the world sees in Tasmania? Slow to catch on, but I think they've nailed it, haven't they?
Oh, well, see, that's the thing. If you've got one of the, an established player right across the globe, they're going to be bringing in not only the funds but the wherewithal in order to do it well. So the thing is, they're not going to be investing that kind of money and just throwing caution to the wind. Like, what are the numbers?
Yeah, and we've already seen evidence of what can happen when there's global exposure to Tasmania. I think it was, from memory, March 2014 when the Chinese president came over, and all those images beamed back to one country with 1.3 billion people, seeing the beautiful things that the state of Tasmania has to offer, the food experiences and the different trips that you can take. That's done wonders just from one trip. That's done wonders for Tassie's economy. I actually think that the next time ComSec release their quarterly State of the State economic update, don't be surprised if for the first time ever, Tasmania is ranked number one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think there was a Mercury article that just came out today, the September 4, saying that we've recorded the strongest economic growth in the nation.
Yeah, and to think where you were in 2013, the state was in recession. So it's a remarkable turnaround, and frankly, mainly in Australia, hasn't done enough to celebrate and acknowledge that. It's incredible.
So I guess tying all this back to property then, so we have two amazing city deals in our two largest cities. Will that have an effect on property markets moving forward, do you think? Is there still growth to be had, or are we sort of capping out, or is this sort of the injection we need to take it to another level?
It definitely have an impact. The biggest influence on the property market of any location is always economic factors. A reducing economy is never good for a property market, and an improving economy is always the precursor to property markets improving. Now, whilst Hobart has officially been Australia's best performed property market over the last 5 years, relative to the rest of Australia, housing is still affordable. There's not many places in Australia where you can still buy a quality 3-bedroom house and have a 3 in the purchase price, and be within a few kilometres of the CBDs, and Hobart still offers that. So I think what the city deals will do to property markets is ensure that the air doesn't fall out of the economy, that it continues to sustain some buoyancy, which would be great for locals, for ongoing job stability. In time, this is likely to benefit the household budget for wage growth, and I think every Australian's been looking forward to seeing wage growth. It'll help your construction sector. It'll give them the confidence to build more dwellings and create more jobs there and supply more housing, both for Hobart and Longford.
Well, when we spoke to you last time, Simon, and you're looking at those key elements that for properties that you're searching for your clients, you really talked about fundamentals. And I suppose these kind of big projects are just going to be enhancing those principles. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Yep. A stable economy means a confident community, and let's face it, when anyone buys a property, whether we're a first-home buyer, whether we're upgrading, downsizing, or whether we're investing, we're also buying debt. And that's the not-so-sexy thing, isn't it? But we need to buy the debt first, and the human psyche needs to be in a positive state of mind to take on that added financial responsibility. So that's why economic conditions, current and future, always has such a massive impact on property markets.
I think that's such a good perspective where, you are buying debt. That's sort of one that's a little the unsexy way of looking at it. However, I'm just going to completely reinforce what you're saying there, Simon, but I haven't sort of heard it put in those terms before. And that's, it's so true, even when you're speaking with moving sideways, is that you don't want to be moving across to a suburb that all of a sudden is going to fall down and have nothing happen to it. So you're only going to, most of the time people want to be moving when they're in a positive frame of mind. And when they do have the confidence in the economy, they're not only going to want to move to Tasmania, but they're going to be happy to move sideways. So it's going to encourage activity just on a day-to-day basis. Absolutely.
This might be a long bow to draw, but have you guys seen what James Hurd's doing? Have you guys heard about this article or what his role is? So I read this article on some James Hird fan page or something that I was following. I still believe.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's selling Major League, or he's working with a company that's selling Major League soccer teams. So like all the big teams in Europe and stuff like that. Like he's brokering deals to sell them off to these big mega money makers.
Okay.
But in the article, they're basically describing like the reasons why a Manchester United is bigger than like a smaller Sunderland or something like that. But it's all got to do with the area and buying the debt. So like all these teams are in mega debt. But if you've got someone that's going to boost them up, it sounds like it's a long bow to draw, but it sounds very similar to what's being described here.
I'm just trying to process that.
It's taking sales to a different level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't James Hird, I wouldn't have even looked at the article.
Thanks for your input, Az.
Well, look, mind you, whether it be sports teams, property, major developments, or any other kind of economic scale you're talking about, I mean, if the potential's there, you're going to find investors. And I suppose when they're looking to purchase a team, they're going to want to be betting on a sure thing rather than just taking a punt.
Yeah, and they're just saying like the Cristiano Ronaldo deal, like something like playing $101 billion or whatever the crazy just number awesome. It is. Like the clubs are so in debt, but because they've got a built-in infrastructure they've already got the stadium, or they own the stadium rather than renting it off Etihad or something like that.
Yep.
It'll be a good deal because once all the media money comes in. Sorry, I'm on a whole other tangent here.
We could bring this back because, Simon, I suppose then, when you be talking to your clients in investing, you are really talking, there is that concept of good debt, bad debt, isn't there? Because obviously you have to purchase the debt, but a well thought through and planned investment is going to mean you'll be able to have that debt working for you long term. Would that be right?
Oh, spot on. In financial speak, yes, there is such a thing as good debt and bad debt. Good debt, I guess firstly you want to have something tangible to show for it. So as opposed to, let's just racking up a $20,000 credit card debt to go on a monthly holiday or something like that, you'll have a great time. But when you come back, you've got nothing to show for it other than, really unattractive credit card bill. But having something tangible to show for it, such as property, makes it a good debt, but an even better debt if that asset is producing an income.
Yeah, exactly.
The true definition of a good debt is an income-producing asset has been acquired using that debt.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks for digging me out of that one, guys.
We got you back, Aaron.
I think with that, boys, it might be time to wrap it up. It's footy finals time, so we all need to go start looking at our squads and making sure our teams are in the hunt for the big silverware. We got to thank Simon for looking away from his super coach and talking to us this morning.
Yeah, and I know we hogged.
There's a big connection for Tasmanians in the Brisbane Lions. Yes, I've got a vested interest to say that, of course, but our great coach, Chris Fagan, from Tassie.
That's Mitch Robinson up there.
Coach of the year, surely. Mitch Robinson, he has to be unlucky to miss out on the All-Australian team, doesn't he?
He does.
A fella by the name of Zane Littlejohn is an integral part of our player development, as also from Tassie.
Oh, there you go. So, yeah, we're basically cousins.
It sounds like Brisbane should be relocating to Hobart.
Oh, that's a good idea.
There you go. There it is.
Hobart Lions.
There's a rumour, isn't it?
You heard it here first. Awesome.
Excellent. Well, thank you for chatting with us again, mate. It's always good to have a yarn. And next time Brisbane are in the press, we'll email you again for more talk.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me back on, and keep up your great work with your fantastic podcast.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. All the best.
414 Real Estate has been operating within the northern suburbs of Hobart since 2006. With their innovative approach to marketing and managing your property, they have all your property needs covered. Find out more by visiting them today at 414.com.au.
All right, that was Simon from Propertyology. Jeez, he's a good bloke.
We're really lucky that he reached out to us initially because, man, he knows his stuff.
Yeah, doesn't he?
Yeah, which I really bloody appreciate. There's a couple of points there. I know I was just basically repeating what he said, but I just, again, with that one conversation, I just had a whole new perspective of looking at it, which is cool.
I told you I was fish out of water, and I was just trying to pull something out. Didn't really work, but I had a crack at it.
You had a crack at it. See, now you know how I feel. You just gotta get it out there.
Yeah.
Man. You got to get it out there.
See, sometimes we need Aaron's level so we can just pull him down.
I didn't hear you jumping in, mate.
Well, look, who knows?
Look, sometimes you know when to jump in and when not to.
But there's always been that search for a Tassie team, and all of a sudden, if all these infrastructure things happen in the next decade, it might just have the interest.
It could happen.
$1 billion just in 2 projects alone that's been awarded to Hobart.
Amazing.
Between now and 2029, so 10 years' time, they're spending over $1 billion on this city. That's crazy.
Well, and for the size of our city, $1 billion is a lot. Because I've still got draft drawings of when that Bridgewater Bridge was proposed back in the mid-2000s.
I envisioned the bridge and I just drew it back in school days and I kept them because I knew one day it would come.
It's just, you ever watched that movie, The Secret? Yeah, it's this whole manifestation of my idea.
You're sitting there in... Who did the architecture class? I can't even... I missed...
Nah, I couldn't pay attention to that one. I like doodling, not drawing straight lines.
Oh, let's go Mr. Cartamatis because I can remember him as a teacher.
Sweet.
Roll with that.
John, it's never going to happen.
All right, boys. Well, we've done a bit of recording today. We'll try and get this one out as quick as we can. And again, thank you, Simon. We'll pop all these socials in the show notes. But yeah, like, share, subscribe.
And don't forget to sign up to Simon's e-newsletter as well, because even if you're not ready to buy in the market yet, boy, does he have some great insight into the property market and investing. It's amazing what he puts together each week.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we focused on specifically Tassie because that's us, but obviously there are those other cities that are the same sort of work's being invested in. So reach out to him and his team to be able to obviously share more with that with you.
And shout out to my 2 friends from Greece that listened to the show last week. That was really good also.
Hey.
How about that?
Oh, we're all over the world, baby.
Yeah. Kicking butt.
We're international.
Hells yeah.
Cool. All right, gang.
All right, guys. Thanks for that. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.
And now for a legal disclaimer. You have been listening to The Property Pod, produced and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Real Estate and McGregor First National Propriety Limited.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek and use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute, should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information.